So we're just going for a little walk, and we've found this lady stopped us. We're on just a little dirt road here, and she's a dog trainer, or she used to be a dog trainer, and she stopped us and she's giving us a lesson on how to teach Indy to get away from the roadside when cars are coming. She's lovely. She's just from the nearby village.
Non si sa mai cosa può succedere qui. Succede anche che andiamo a fare una passeggiata e troviamo un'addestratrice di cani da tartufo che ci insegna come gestire il cane. Una cosa meravigliosa questa.
Free lessons on your dog walk. Brilliant. What more could you ask for? And this is an afternoon dog walk for a change. Which is lovely. It's got a lovely light. And we thought we'd talk to you today about why are there so many abandoned houses in Tuscany? Because we've obviously been showing quite a few. When we go on our walks, we do show some of the abandoned houses that we come across. And there's been a lot of people asking how come, why are there so many, why are they all abandoned, what's going on? So we thought we would have a little talk about it while we wander around the countryside. Past huge abandoned houses like this one right here. This house can be seen from the road, and every time we've gone past, I've always looked at it and said, that looks amazing, that would be the perfect property. And we finally figured out how to get here and come up and have a real good look at it. It's massive, it's way bigger than it looks from the road, and it's in much worse condition as well. But it's an old farmhouse, obviously. It's got outbuildings, and I've just seen another one in front of me here. But it's fascinating. I'd love to go and look inside, but looking at the state of that, I don't think it's a good idea. We've lost the actual pathway, but we're having to climb around this rather steep hillside just to get around the side of the house because it's all fenced off up there and there's nowhere to pass. So why are there so many abandoned houses in Italy, or especially in Tuscany?
Uno dei motivi, per esempio, potrebbe essere semplicemente che i proprietari della casa sono morti e non hanno lasciato eredi.
For example, a couple of weeks ago we were with a couple of friends and we went to visit this abandoned house that we'd actually already found it, but we didn't know much about it. But asking around, our friends actually used to know the owner, and this house has been completely abandoned and left with everything in it since 2016. Not a huge amount of time, but enough time for the gardens to grow tall and weedy and for it to be hard to get into the house. And unfortunately, the owner died of a heart attack and didn't have any children, he didn't have a wife, he didn't have any family to leave the house to. And nobody really knows what's happening to the house, whether it's been bought or what's going to happen to it. I mean, we love it, but I think it's a bit out of our price range. It's a stunning house. Anyhow, that's one of the reasons. Somebody might just die and there's nobody to leave the house to. Another reason?
Può essere che è una casa molto vecchia, che ha dei danni strutturali, per cui è troppo costoso ripararla e quindi viene semplicemente lasciata abbandonare.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in Italy can't afford to completely renovate a house if it has structural damage, because in Italy wages are often very low and people can't afford to pay the extra money it would cost for a big renovation job, especially if a roof needed to be replaced or something like that. So rather than do it up, they move into somewhere smaller and easier to maintain. Okay, another reason could be the problem with the wills in Italy. So when you die in Italy and you don't need to write a will because your property becomes equally divided between all of your children. So for example, let's say a man has a lovely big farmhouse and he's got 5 children and he dies, and his lovely big farmhouse has to be equally divided between 5 children. Now obviously that's problematic in itself, but often what happens is one of the children will want to sell the house, one of them will want to live in it, one will want to rent out as a B&B, one will want to turn it to a restaurant, and one's not sure what they want to do, and they all start arguing between themselves, and until they resolve and decide what they're going to do with it, the property remains empty.
Sì.
And that happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
Sì, purtroppo succede anche questo. Un altro motivo ancora potrebbe essere che siccome in tanti posti in Italia, e non solo in Italia, si viveva nelle campagne, adesso si preferisce più vivere nelle città, anche se negli ultimi anni c'è un'inversione di questa tendenza, quindi dalle città si va in campagna, ma questo è un discorso più moderno. E in realtà tante case vengono abbandonate per essere poi trasferite più nelle città dove ci sono più opportunità di lavoro.
We met when we were going for a walk one day. We walked past an abandoned house which was sort of down the other side of a field, and then a bit further on we met this old man with a big rifle. He was hunting, and he told us that he had been born in the abandoned house that we'd seen, and his family left it in 1953, I think he said, when he was just a young boy, and they moved to the nearest city, which would have been Pontedera, where they had the Vespa factory, and that's where all the jobs were, that's where the money was. So lots of families left the surrounding area at that time to go and work for the Vespa factory and earn a secure wage. The farm that he lived, the house that he lived on was part of a big farm, and they were tenants and they were tenant farmers, so they had a big chunk of land that they had to farm, and I don't think it was a very lucrative job. I mean, he said the house was falling down around them already by the time they left, so I think it was worth everybody's while to move to the city and get a proper job in a factory. Looking on the map, we saw that there's a big abandoned property somewhere in those woods behind us. In front of us, actually. We've just stop it. And we're gonna go and see if we can find it. We haven't been to this one yet, so we're gonna see if we can find it. We might not be able to get through the woods, but we'll give it a go.
Andiamo a esplorare. Adesso andiamo più nello specifico di come mai in questa zona precisa dove siamo noi ci sono così tante case abbandonate.
Guarda, Indy, si è seduto nel fango come Lucia. You've never done that before. Are you hot? You're going to have a big bath when we get home if you're going to do that. Don't drink it.
Questa è la prima volta che l'ha fatto. Non ho mai visto fare quello.
Dio mio. It's a bit squishy. Okay, I'm going to... What are you doing?
Dai. Allora, adesso andiamo un po' più nello specifico sul perché ci sono tante case abbandonate qui, nella zona dove stiamo. Allora, questa zona è una zona molto agricola, dove praticamente si produceva tutto quello che riguarda per il sostentamento delle persone, del cibo, e praticamente queste aziende, che erano molto vecchie, tutte queste case erano in mano a pochi proprietari, quindi non è che ognuno aveva la sua casa, ma erano dei coloni che vivevano in queste case pagati da queste grandi aziende. Queste aziende sono praticamente fallite, non adesso ovviamente, negli anni, insomma 100 anni fa, 50 anni fa, e le case sono state abbandonate perché non c'era più bisogno di far vivere gli agricoltori in queste case. E loro le case ce l'avevano in città. Oggi si lavora con i trattori, si lavora con grandi macchine che costano migliaia e migliaia di euro, non è più come una volta che si lavorava con l'asino oppure con un bue che trascinava l'aratro. L'abbiamo trovata.
See, there's another one right here. This one's a bit overgrown and hard to see.
Questa casa è completamente inaccessibile, non si può entrare dentro, come potete vedere. È anche molto pericoloso, più delle altre che abbiamo già visto.
So a lot of these houses are not for sale, and of course some of them are for sale. And if they are for sale and they're in conditions like this one, you're obviously going to need a lot of money to repair it and adjust it, and you're going to need a lot of permissions and permits and all sorts of things, and it's never going to be easy, and it's always going to cost more than you think it's going to. So I can't tell you which ones are for sale and which ones aren't for sale. I don't really know, but if you are interested in properties like this, I would advise you to go onto websites like Idealista, I'll leave the links below, and immobiliare.it, and you need to put some filters in and put rudere, which means ruins. That's the sort of thing that these are called. So you can easily find them for sale. Some of them are pretty cheap and some of them are ridiculously expensive for what they're offering, but you might find your dream ruin. If you missed last week's video, I sat down with a friend of mine, Claire, and we talked about the recent film on Netflix, La Dolce Villa, where they renovate an abandoned property in Tuscany and bring it back to life. And Claire has actually done this in real life with her husband, Andy. They bought an old ruin and renovated it into the most beautiful guest house. So I'll leave the link for that here somewhere, and you can watch that. What was your favourite abandoned property that we found so far?
Penso che sia quella casa dove ci sono le api intorno e c'è quel grande albero di pino. Quella è una posizione bellissima, anche la casa è molto bella.
That one that we found, it was only about 3 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Sì, sì.
Yeah.
Ma anche però quella casa ha gravi problemi, diciamo, strutturali, è tutta crepata, è una casa che non può essere ripristinata, a meno che di tirarla giù e rifarla da capo. A quel punto non è una rinnovazione, ma è togliere il vecchio e rifare nuovo, ma questo è un altro discorso.
Okay. And my favourite one, do you know what? I'm actually thinking of, it's not a house. Do you remember when we were in Umbria and we went to that abandoned church with the river running through it?
Ah sì.
That was my favourite
sì.
abandoned property.
Sì, quella è, vabbè, ma quella è bellissima proprio.
Yeah.
Indy?
Indy, come here. Tractor coming. Tractor incoming. So we're going to leave you here. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed this chat about abandoned houses. I'm sure we will discover many more with you. And I'm going to stop now because the tractor's coming.